I'm going to give a shout out to some of my PEI friends here, Matt, Jackie, Bill Kendricks, and I guess we'll have to yell out to Charles now too. Charles is not here. But anyways, there's other people on here I know through Nature's Table, people I've dealt with in the past, and I just always look at other people's businesses to see how they're doing. So I'm quite familiar with not everybody, but a lot of people that are on here today. I'm going to tell a little bit of a story about how COVID has affected me and what I'm trying to do to, I don't like that word pivot, but what I'm trying to do to adjust to it or adapt to it. Last year was a tough year. And just to give you an idea, we do run an experiential company out of Georgetown. It's mostly charter boat, but we have a lot of activities. We have a giant bar clam dig that we go to a deserted island. That's our number one hit. Deep sea fishing, we made that a hit by adjusting it somewhat. We'll not cover that today, but we have a starfish hunt that we do on the land. This year we're starting a shellfish painting. We do motor coach bus tours. And last year with COVID, my motor coach completely canceled, left us high and dry. My number one hit, the clam dig, we had 4 people for the season. 4 people, a complete dead horse. So we had to go from, we're not rich people by any means, but we had a very good business where we worked for 4 to 5 months in the summer and we enjoyed our lives and traveled a bit. And we went to negative income. Now, negative income is where you put money in to start your business and you don't even come close to gaining back your startup costs. So we really took a hit last year. I just want you to know we went from a real good business to where it actually cost us money to operate last year. So we took quite a hit. We're glad we had the time to adjust. We're going to take a look at it, but overall, we had a strategy in place, a 3-year strategy. And I'm going to share my screen now and I'm going to start on how this strategy started and how we continued it, even when there was no money available to continue. Okay. The strategy started actually in 2019. My wife and I sat down, she's into tourism also, and we took a look at the business and we decided that we're going to start updating infrastructure that we had. Our boat was getting a little bit small, a little bit older. You have to have good stuff if you're in this business. So we decided to go with a brand new boat. We bought this boat in Newfoundland. It's the smallest lobster boat they sell over there. It's a Seabreeze. Just an amazing boat. I just couldn't believe that this thing suits us so well. It's 4 feet longer. We upped the horsepower to 50. It's very comfortable inside and meets all the Coast Guard ship safety regulations. So we put quite an investment into this in 2019. In 2020, now you have to remember, we did this at the start of 2020. COVID wasn't around yet, so we put a major investment into our boat. We had it sandblasted, completely fiberglassed, inside and out. We even got the guys in with the decal kits. The decals were a couple $1,000s. So this was a major investment, pushing 50 grand to do this to our boat. The boat's amazing right now. We really upgraded. It's so much cleaner. It's just a joy to go to work in the mornings in a boat like this now. And this was all a big update. A lot cheaper than buying. If I had bought a boat of this type right now, you're talking perhaps $500,000 to get it all done the way you want it. So even though the investment, I think as a small business operator, was quite a bit, it was still only a fraction of what it cost if we had to buy a new one. This year, now we just got the boat out of the shop here the other day. So this is all brand new canopy top. We decided to keep on going with this investment because the boat needed a new canopy. The other one's 11 years old, so we put it right in the fab shop. They built us an aluminum top, tinted glass side windows. We have a hot water solar heater up top so you can take a shower when you get out from the clamming trips and get the salt out of your hair and off your face. We put new handrails on the sides. We put a cover over the barbecue to protect it from the wind. So it was quite an investment again. And this is during COVID when we actually had no income coming in. The sides all go up, as you can see in the bottom corner. They go right up to the ceiling, makes a lot of room in the boat. It's great for fishing. It was perfect for what we needed. And we still did it during COVID. Now, there's a couple of reasons why we did it. First, the strategy that we knew we had to move in 3 different sections, but actually, I'll take a quick peek here at, for instance, if I'd done anything like this on my vessel before, I'd go through a small business investment grant, a grant, you don't have to pay it back. It was always 15%. So I'm just going to throw out a figure on this here, let's say $30,000 to do something like this. And I would normally get $4,500 back on the grant. Of course, we get our HST back, which is something you have to look at. But this year, because of COVID, they upped it to a new rate of 30%. So even though I really couldn't afford it this year, I like to pay for things as I go. I still had to jump on because 30% back and 15 on your HST back, it's a 45% return or money I didn't have to put out. So there are a few reasons why we went with this, fulfilling the 3-year plan. And also there was new incentives through the government that made it more attractive. So we did go through with that. This spring, or last spring, I'm sorry, COVID was already here. I was bored of the trees. I knew we weren't going in June, and we have a rental here on the ground floor of our house. I said, how can I make this better? Because I have time on my hands. And we started putting a deck right down on the water. Now, it looks like this stuff is old at the back, but all this is recycled wood. We only use new wood down on the bottom. So this whole project, which the people that stay here really, really love, is they're right down on the water. It's private. This whole thing only cost me about $1,300. So we're still investing in the property. And if it wasn't for COVID, I wouldn't have done this because I would have been busy. So you know, and here's what it ended up like. It's all recycled wood, but it looks really cool. It's a great private place to sit. There's an oyster table down there. We have an oyster lease out in front of the house. It's just another way that we invested. Our beach suite is in ground level. You can see it here. It's 6 years old. There I was, bored again. And I said, I'm going to invest in this to make it the best it can be. It wasn't kicked to pieces. The place still looked very nice, but it wasn't as fresh as new. So I went through the whole place, touched up any nicks on the walls, or if we moved a painting, and we completely painted the whole place from top to bottom, ceilings, walls, trim, everything. And now we're going into this season, and it's just beautiful. It just looks like a brand new spot. So if you have anything that needs to be updated or looked after, now's the time to do it. And there's a lot of things like doing this and the deck. It wasn't a big investment. Between doing the deck and doing the full apartment, a $2,000 investment because I'd done all the labor myself. So even though we'd had some big ticket items on here, there's still ways that I'm not going to sit in my butt. I'm going to try to make everything the best that it can be. And that was one of them. Here's another good example of taking advantage of some government incentives. The government put out a $2,500 grant that any way that you could make people understand how your business is adapting to COVID was a forgivable $2,500 grant. So we were the first ones to do this. We pitched them that because of the complete renovations on the boat, what we were doing, we wanted to show how clean the boat was, number one, how clean the washrooms were, what we were offering, how we get into private charters, like you see in the bottom with the lobster net, how we could take small groups and make it work. And we pitched it that we needed a photographer. We needed professional, a new deck of photos. And these are very important for your website. If you're doing Twitter, Instagram, if a magazine calls, you can send them high quality, high resolution pictures. And this was another one that we invested in, and we received, bloody 95, 100, I don't think it was 100%, but 95% of our money back from this. So even though it's COVID years, we're still doing a lot. And I mean, we're doing a lot. It's every week, it seems like as if we either got something lined up or we're cleaning stuff, painting stuff, finding out about a new small grant here or there. There was grants. This grant was also available if you wanted to buy hand sanitizers, if you wanted to buy wipes, if there was anything you needed. So there are little grants all over the place. You got to be on all that stuff because it's lean times, and we got to try to stretch our dollar as far as we can. We started the oyster tonguing last year, and then COVID came in, so we didn't have anything in March, and we usually go into perhaps April, and this was a new experience for us. We really pushed it hard this year. We thought we were going to do very well on it. We have a lot of inquiries, and I kind of do my own analytics. Most of the inquiries were people that are moving here from PEI from other provinces, people that want to experience the real PEI. Now, the only problem with this, we put in the investment in this was only a couple $1,000s. We bought 3 sets of oyster tongs at $350 a piece. We had a modifier chainsaw with a new chain and longer bar for the ice conditions. We bought a used stainless steel table for shucking oysters. We made a sleigh to haul behind the snowmobile to haul this out in the ice. Only a $2,000 investment. Getting some inquiries, we have no ice. I never seen it before. I swear to God, I never seen it before. We have no ice here, period. So I don't know what to think of the whole thing. Anyways, we're trying our best and weather's not cooperating. If anybody has any questions, I think put them in. Jonathan will interrupt me and we can attend anybody's questions. We usually update our website every 3 to 4 years. We had prices on our website. Websites were running between $2,000 to $4,000 plus HST. And my company that I dealt with, my booking agent, they just weren't at a place where I was hoping that they would be. They made a couple errors in not returning my phone call and not returning my email, and I just couldn't take a chance on it. I think they're still going to be there. I might have made the wrong move, but I jumped to another booking or another broker that will sell my product. They take a very small percent. This is a great thing to do if you want to loosen up your time or get more time for yourself. They do all the emails, they do the bookings. They answer the phone calls. It's just amazing what they do. Anyways, because I was going to put a new website up, $2,000 to $4,000, I told them, and they said, well, if you come with us as an incentive, we'll build you a brand new website. So I saved between $2,000 and $4,000 there by going with this new company that's well established, and they don't look as if they're going to be a risk to me going down through my season. So we are keeping busy. This website is going to be up the 1st of March. I'm very excited about launching this new website. I think this will be the 5th website in 13 years. We put it up, a new website usually up every 2 to 3 years.
Harry,
it's great just to refresh it. Yes, Jonathan.
There's a question there about who are you using for your booking site?
We were using EasyTix, and honestly, they were a fabulous company. We thought the world, and we had a great relationship with them. The person that I dealt with personally, I don't think he's with them now, so they weren't answering my phone calls or emails. And I think there might have been just a communication glitch there. I'm with Fair Harbor now, and they're an American company. EasyTix is actually a Canadian based in Toronto. So I'm with Fair Harbor now, and everything seems to be going good so far. I really enjoy their back door, so I can go in and actually put an extra trip on if it looks busy. Years ago, I used to put on, let's say, 3 fishing trips, and I'd have 4 people book on one, 5 people book on the other one, and I'd be going out 3 times with half loads. Now I put on 1 trip. When that trip gets up to 10, which is just about max, we only take 12, we put on the 2nd trip. So having the ability to go in the back door and put more trips on at different times, it's a money maker for you, and it's a luxury that you have. If I want the afternoon off or the evening or the weekend, you can put trips up, take them down in seconds. It's very easy. So anybody that's not into this, they really should be. A booking agent or a broker is an amazing thing. They take enough. Like I was getting 85 emails a day and 70 to 80 phone calls a day. And that was just eating up my time. I was just stressed out over it. A lot of them, there was a lot of logistics to it. If it was a private charter, I go through this, and I only get one or two phone calls a day now. Somebody that needed to talk to me for a certain reason, but it's a great way to free it up. And I really wish I had went with it years ago. I've only been with Easy Ticks now, I'm guessing 4 or 5 years. So I literally went 6, 7 years where I should have been with somebody like that, because I was just too darn busy. It was crazy. So we're going to be launching a new website very soon. Now I'm going to get Jonathan to take the screen down. I'm just going to tell you a little bit of how we had to adjust to make the business work during COVID times and what we see as another summer. I don't think we're going to have much of a summer. I think it's going to be a very late summer for tourism. If we're fortunate, it might be a bit of a good fall, but it's really going to be next year before the gears all kick in, and we start making serious money again.
Perry, and I think you'll get into this with the next piece, but so for much of what you do as far as that private charter or specialization, maybe that's going to be in the next part of your conversation. What is that booking part do you use for that? Is that more of you're talking to them one-on-one, building those things out, or does that go through your ticketing process as well?
That will be going through the ticketing. The private charters, we just have a flat rate on our business. We charge $300 an hour plus HST. I don't mind talking dollars with people. So what we'd have, a private charter starts at 2 hours. You can go 2 hours up to 8 hours. So what you do is you would actually book private charter 2 hours, but there would have to be a phone call to me, and then I'd put it right up on the site, and then they'd plug into it. So there still would be a phone call to me, yes. And a lot of it is extras. They want lobsters, they want mussels, they want oysters, whatever they want, we're going to get it for them.
And each of those are just add-on pricing pieces depending on what the market price is of that stuff at that point in time?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of people ask me, how do you price out stuff like that? Well, I just tell them it's as simple as this. If I have to go somewhere to get the lobsters, I take my time and my travel. And if I go and get lobsters off fishermen, I double the price, because that's still very, very fair to the customer. If I have to buy lobsters from a lobster pound, I only put it up about 25%, because I don't want to make the lobsters seem too expensive. So it depends on when I buy my lobsters. June from the fishermen, I'll double the price. And if it's August when I have to go to a lobster pound, I'll only put 25% on it. But you do have to make a profit off what you're selling, just to cover your cost, your time, and everything else.
Thanks.
Yeah. So what we had to do, we were big into analytics. We use Google Analytics because that was what we started with. Analytics will tell you the busiest day of the week, the busiest time of the day, how many people went out. It just tells you everything if you want to get into it. So we always found that Saturday afternoons and Sunday were our slowest times. So we took Saturday afternoons and Sundays off. And a lot of people thought that was crazy, but honestly, that's our slowest times for our business. And we run all through the week and even Saturday morning. Because of COVID, we completely flip-flopped. We went from Thursday evening, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday being our busiest times, and totally dead Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday mornings. So we had to completely reschedule everything that we're doing, everything I was used to doing, to adjust to this new normal of their weekend warriors. They're heading out of Halifax, they're heading out of Moncton, Charlottetown. They want to get out on a boat, and the only time they do it is on the weekends. So we really had to adjust to that. Another big adjustment for me, our clamming trip is 100% sold out all the time. We never go out with an empty seat. If we go out with an empty seat, somebody missed the boat, or they get sick, or they had to cancel. And we had to go from full capacity to four people for the whole season. So, and I was still thinking, what's going on? My head couldn't get around that they're not coming. And it was quite a thing to take your best adventure, your biggest money maker, and put it not on the side shelf, drop it. Like we just, at the end of it, we just said, that's it. we're better off going it with 5 people deep sea fishing than waiting on and filling a spot that's not going to fill up. So we actually had to drop our number one and go to our number two. Uh, so there was all kinds of things that we had to do to adjust to this. It was just unbelievable. Yeah. If there's any questions and anything, fire them into Jonathan, and he'll put them right through to me.
And Perry,
Yeah.
thinking through about the why of that, you and I had this conversation
Yeah.
earlier. For a lot of people on here, having to rethink um, how they design their experience offerings for the
Yeah.
local market versus that traditional Ontario, Quebec,
Right.
European market. Was it just that the local market didn't value or see the opportunity in that experience because they could go do it, or they have done it, or
Yeah.
what is your thoughts on that? And I guess, you know, for other people on here, the
Yeah.
importance of not that we have overlooked our local market, but how do we, I guess, re-envision how we deliver these experiences for New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI, Newfoundland, and Labrador. So
Well, we're going to the what it comes right down to there is disposable income in the household, and we're still going to hit that disposable income when it comes to private because they're going to pay premium price maximum for our private charters. But we have to remember now that the market is completely switched to people that don't have disposable income, and it's quite evident. Uh, you can see it in their vehicles where they're staying. Like 95% of the clientele that we had were staying at the Delta. They were staying at the Great George. We had nobody that was really camping or staying in tents, or they were staying in beach homes. They were telling us all these spots. So it was a high rate of high disposable income, and we had to switch to where things were the money just wasn't flowing that much. So that's why we started this year. We have a shell painting, and it's for families with kids because we're still getting a lot of families with small children, and the price point is actually quite low, but there's not too much overhead in it. So how we started this, we have staff that are staying at our office down at the wharf, and if I'm not using them, and there's another thing, take advantage of your provincial government and federal government incentives for your students. The federal government this year has given us 100% of the wages back for the first student, and the provincial government is going to give us 50 to 75% back, I'm hoping. So get right on those ones. The federal government actually may have passed the deadline, but the provincial government is still coming up. So it's very important to get your staff. Um, the staff, they were sitting there a lot of the times. If anybody came in, of course, they tell them what we're doing and our schedule, but it's just dead time for them. So we started a shellfish painting, and this is where parents with small kids can come in. We have our giant clam shells. They're huge, 2 pounders. And we have them all, these are seasoned and sanded, so they can come in, and we have about 15 or 20 shells painted, and they actually just sit down on an old picnic table or a table with some paper on it, and they just paint the shells all they want. And we have the students there to help them. We supply the paints, the brushes, the shells, make sure it's all water paints, nothing toxic. And it's just, I think it's going to be a hit. We never tried it yet. We're going to start it this summer, but I think it's going to be a good one, and it'll keep my staff busy when there's usually downtime where they're just watching videos or sitting there.
Perry, can you share with folks, because I agree, like this whole opportunity around the family market, I
Yeah.
think it's incredible. For all of us who have kids, we need things to entertain them. There's lots of conversations we've had within parent groups about, we need this summer for mental health. We need this opportunity for something much more engaging, I guess. But my question to you is, and maybe you can share with people your thoughts or insights. How are you getting this out in front of that market? So how will I find that?
Okay. We always used Instagram, Twitter, Facebook a little bit. Like if we had something going on, if we caught a bigger fish, we'd put it on. But we usually never used it because we were just at capacity. We're very, very fortunate that we're at capacity most of the time. June, of course, we'd be going out with some empty seats, but July and August, September, awesome months for us. Even October, we go into October. So, what? Geez, Jonathan, I lost my thought there for a second. What was the question again?
I'm just wondering. I mean, you actually answered it. You talked about
Yeah.
using the Instagram and
Oh, yes, I'm back on track now. So this year, because we know it's all going to be locals or within the bubble, we started an aggressive Facebook campaign December 20th. We're posting every day, and now I'm realizing, God, I don't know very much about hashtags, and I don't know very much about boosting, and I don't know much about. So, anyways, last week I actually our Point East Coastal Drive, that's our region, they put on free courses to learn more about all this stuff. I was the first one to sign up. Of course, my wife is the executive director, but I signed up. And this week, actually, this afternoon, I'm going for part 2 of my course, and I think we're going to have another one next week. But this afternoon, I'm going to learn how to take a video, and if there's a 4-second snippet in there that I want, how I can take that out and then put a very short. So we're really hitting hard now on Facebook and Instagram. They're the two that I picked, and it's really making a difference in the locals. Like we're getting up to like 1,100, 1,200 impressions on some stuff, and people are sharing it more and more all the time. But that's going to hit the local market. And I never ever tried to before because our market was Ontario, the rest of Canada, the rest of the States, the rest of the world. And that completely changed overnight.
so there's a question here from Lori. Without the local market not traveling this year, do you see any opportunity for a higher price point experience? Just wondering if you think they will spend the money this year for family vacations locally.
And that would be our private. Our like when we push our privates, the number one thing we're pushing is how safe it is, how clean it is, and the prep that we go into before we do a private. The great thing about private is you can have a family of 4 and they pay for a full boat. So I'm not trying to hide anything here. Private, if you go private, you're paying for 12 people. So it's a like, and we're $300 an hour. So a 4-hour climbing trip private is $1,200 plus tax, plus tips, plus if they want anything else, and they usually do. We still have disposable income here in the Maritimes. It's just not like Ontario. Like, how can it be like Ontario? The numbers just are 50-fold of what it is here in Prince Edward Island or anywhere else. So we actually, this is the first time in 13 years I put my prices up. I put my prices up 10% this year. I was going to put them up last year and it just didn't happen. And you really got to make sure that you think things ahead and go for putting your prices up. I don't think I want to update my Java today. Thank you.
That's an interesting point, Perry. Like most people would have been scared to death to have done that. And
Yes.
on the flip side, you're losing lots of businesses. So if I'm able to at least increase that price point, I'm still able to maybe cover off my costs with less people.
Yeah.
What was your thinking behind putting your price up during a pandemic?
Well, I think people will see how hard we're working and how all the infrastructure is being updated, super clean, everything's new. Like when you go down to the boat and see what it looks like now and the new shuttle boat, and like we updated all our wetsuits within the last 2 years. There's none of this here putting on gear where the arms are ripped or the zipper doesn't work. We're a class act. The whole thing, I know it's up to snuff. We have the cleanest boat in PEI. I'll argue with that with anybody. And people are getting what they pay for. People never once, not once did they ever complain about my price. My price was $99 for clamming per person. And this year we put it up to $109. So price was never an issue. So I think it's fair, it's reasonable, and people are getting, like, you go to a hotel, if the place is dirty and the bathroom's dirty, like you complain, but if it's clean, you'll put up with a lot more. Same with a restaurant. If it's clean, if it's a good meal, and it's a high price, you don't mind. But if it's a bad meal and a dirty restaurant, you're not putting up with it. So if you got that cleanliness right, and the experience, everything it can be with all the value added things you can throw in there. And that's what's great about our trips. People think they're coming on a clam trip. They're getting a hollow lobster trap, a rock crab trap, a mussel sock. We're going seeing the seals. We're swinging by the lighthouse. Everything on the boat is free. Hot coffee, energy bars, cold juices, no pops or anything. It's all juices, and that's all in the price. So value add's a big part of it. It was a tough year last year. I'm not. I'm like I had to shut the business down early, and I used to work carpentry work 30 years ago, and I had to go back at the carpenter work. I had to be realistic. I'm not making any money at this, and I still left the boat in the water. And if there was a worthwhile trip going out, we did it. But I had to go back at carpenter work, and I actually worked 2 jobs last year, uh, just because I knew there was a big payment coming up the last week of August on my refurbishing the boat. And we have a good life and we live pretty good. But once you get used to making that kind of money and you go from here, not down to where you didn't make any, but down to where you lost money to start, it's a tough one. So we're in the RFPs early.
I've got to ask this. I've got to ask this question, Perry, because when you started this, you talked about all of this massive investment that you put into this. Mm-hmm. So my question to you is, you had to go and you had to get another job to sort of, cover some costs and things.
Yes.
Why did you do it? Why did you invest? Why did you invest in your business? Why did you do all of those things?
Everybody I talked to, Keith Hansen here in Prince Edward Island is working with Tourism PDI. He does all the numbers and the facts of surveys being done all across Canada by Destination Canada, by the province of PEI, and even the maritime provinces. And believe me when I tell you this, there's a pent up, just think about yourself. We're used to going down south. I imagine most people that are listening here today are used to going on some kind of a trip, whether it's to another part of Canada or going down to the sunny south. We haven't done this in over a year. And there's just a pent up, I got to get out of here. You were saying about the children. People are going to come. It's just going to be awesome when all these needles, if we get them in, if they work, the vaccinations, there is a proven through surveys that people want to get out and they want to spend money, and the first ones coming are the disposable income and people looking for outdoors adventures that are safe, that they have room. You're not going to see them in the movie theaters all crammed in like they used to be. They're looking for a place where there's room for them to sit and put their arms out like this instead of having to sit like this. So I think that we are number one on what they're coming for. And I'm investing because when it comes back, it's going to come back big. I really do believe that. I'm putting everything into it. And I'm not going to have a half shabby business waiting for this to be over. When this is over, everything's going to be spotless, clean, up to date, modernized, ready to go. Yeah.
I think those are all great points, Perry. I mean, one of the things of, and it's always hard because, you look at it and you think I had negative income, but all of a sudden I just had, $45,000 that I put out here as an investment. What I really love about what you've done, and you did this even before the pandemic, was you searched out all of these opportunities, and they're not let's be honest, it's not easy to find all this stuff all the time because they're spread across different departments. They're in different levels of government at the same time. But the ability to find these things, even every little dollar helps. And
absolutely.
I think it's been interesting. I'll have a conversation with you and I'll learn something new every day because you're telling me about some investment fund or grant or piece that's out there. I think that's the key to a lot of this stuff is this. It takes a lot of work to a lot of hard work. And it's not, it's not one of those things where you just do it for 4 or 5 months. You're at this for 12 months straight, really, because you've got to understand, that we need to get that information out there. And I love how you've extended your season offerings as well into the winter months. Once
Yeah,
again, I think there's a pent up demand locally for sort of those winter experiences
absolutely.
and
And there
what.
was a lot of things we tried that were failures. So it's not like as if, like I had a guy send me a golden horseshoe here one time, and I put it up on the wall. He said everything I touched would turn to gold, and I was spray painted gold. It's not real gold. But anyways, there's a lot of stuff that we touched that went to crap. Like we went out and we bought a snowmobile and we wanted to start snowmobile guided tours. Well, everybody thought I was renting snowmobiles. No, if you come here from New Brunswick or Nova Scotia or Newfoundland and you have your snowmobiles, I will put you up. We have a beautiful suite here down on the ground level, and I'll put you up and then I will guide you. And when I guide you, that means I'm taking you on the Confederation Trail. I'm taking you to the restaurants that you can drive right into without having to park your snowmobile 2 blocks away. I'm taking you to the gas stations. And then after a day or two, you know the place, you're on your own. You can do tip to tip and PEI on our trails. It was a complete flop. We had a little bit of interest, but it was mostly for people wanting to rent snowmobiles. So we had to shut that down. We had yoga on the water. I thought it was the best thing ever. It was the most, I came home and I felt refreshed. I never came home tired. And we were getting interest, 2, 3, 4 people. The only way you can really make money is have a full boat. We weren't getting it. I shot the horse. I ran it for 2 years, and we get rid of it. Like, and there's other things I started, and it just didn't work out for me. So, even for instance, Matt has a successful paddleboard company down in Surrey and down at Basin Head. He's even mobile. He'll go to where you want. I started one in Georgetown, and because we have so much wind here in Georgetown, I started at West Street Beach. People were coming, they wanted to rent, but it was that rough they couldn't get out on them. So after 2 years, I said, the only way this can work is if you're in a better location. So I could have kept it going because it was paying the wages, but I wasn't making a lot for myself. I just sold everything off. So we did try stuff, and if it didn't work out the way I thought, we'd shoot the horse. Yeah.
Does anyone have questions they want to fire out? If so, feel free. As I said, anytime. If not, Perry, keep on going, buddy. Great.
Well,
I have a,
if there's, oh, somebody's there.
yes, there is.
Okay.
When you said, you shut it down
Yeah.
because it just wasn't generating any money, did you work with any partners at all, Perry?
Oh God, yeah. Bill Kendricks and I worked together for years. Bill sold my product. If anybody was ever starting on PEI, I give Bill referrals. It's just an amazing company that he has. We partner with restaurants here. We partner with the Playhouse.
Okay.
We partner with all the big hotel chains, for instance, Crowbush in Rod's Crowbush, Rod's Brew now. So we do partner with a lot of people. Yeah, but
So you
wasn't
partner with,
pardon?
so is that is building packages? You
Yes,
partner
building
with them
packages.
to build packages.
And they'd actually be selling my product right out there and telling people, if you're staying here, we have a boat company that does fishing, that does clamming, that does starfish hunts. So they're letting everybody know about me. Absolutely. There's one thing
Okay,
I've always,
thanks.
pardon? Yeah.
No problem. That's good information.
Yeah. Partner with as many people as you can. Packages have been coming in now over the last 3 to 4 years. And if you can do anything at all, package with, I'll just tell you what we had for the beach suite this winter. And we have a lot of inquiries, but like I said, we have no ice. So we're offering 1, 2, or 3 night stays with us right here, a beautiful suite down on the ground level with the ice tonguing package. I think the first night was 490, or 2 nights was 495, and that included 2 night stay, a $20 gas card, a $20 at the local grocery store, a $20 at the jewelry store in Georgetown, and a $20 card at the sweet shop in Georgetown, a $20 gas card, I think I said that, and a $50 provincial gift card that tourism has been promoting now these year. So they were getting $130 worth of coupon cards, They were coming in
Mhm.
on my experience and they were getting to stay for 2 nights. So that's one package that we put together, and we brought in one, two, three, four, five, six different partners to make that work. And and
Okay.
they're a hit. And people say, well, you're giving all away. Well, believe me, you're paying for it. I figure out what I have to
Yeah.
take from the room. I figure out what my experience is worth. I take those gift cards. I add it all up. Whatever the total is, that's what the total is. People want it. So we're not losing any
I
money.
real I realized when you first started, I think you started out taking people out on your lobster boat,
Yes.
helping you
Yeah.
lobster fish,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Was there any hurdles there with the government as far as safety and
We
all
went
that
through
stuff
all the
goes?
ship safety courses and we made sure our insurance knew about it. But the federal government still gave us a hassle saying that there's only two people allowed out on a boat. That's the captain of the boat and the helper of the boat. So they didn't want anybody else being out on the boat. So we just argued it and we did it. I'm not saying it was right. We made sure our butts were covered with insurance, but we used to have a Cork adventure where people came out and actually helped us fish lobsters. And then we had the all you can eat lobster. And that was all the lobsters you want when we're out in the boat, we cook and you could eat. The most I ever seen anybody eat was 7 lobsters. Usually they'd eat 1 to 3 lobsters. $200. Well, it was a moneymaker. Like there was all kinds of ways. A lot of it was when I started all of my experiences, or it was what we've been doing ever since we were kids. So
Right.
it was nothing new to us, but yeah.
Barry, I have a question.
And you,
Oh, sorry, I thought you were done. Go ahead, Susan.
no, I was just, one more question, like, when you said the most they ate was 7, are we talking,
Seven
what
one
size
pound
lobster
lobsters,
were we
seven
talking?
2 pound lobsters. It was the football player. He ate
Jesus.
7 lobsters, and on the way in, he got seasick, and I thought it was a fire hydrant shooting lobster meat out across the boat. Like it was disgusting, but he ate 7 damn pounds. I'm guessing he ate 15 to 18 pounds of lobsters. And
Okay, I thought you were talking canners at first. That's why I had to
no,
ask.
when you come out in the boat, you can pick out whatever you want. Pound and a half, 2 pounds, whatever. I'd try to tell people the best lobsters a pound, pound and a quarter, pound and a half. But we cooked them, and this big guy, he was a big guy, and I'm telling you, they come up quicker than went down.
Trina, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question because we do tours in the back country, and we also do walkabouts down on the beach. And what we've been doing, we did have lobster boil and mussel boil. They did it themselves. We brought the stuff, they cooked it and took care of it. After the fact, I realized I had to have a license for all of this stuff.
Yes.
So I've been trying to get that straightened out because even when we go in the back country, we want to do the boil ups.
Yeah.
And I'm having so much trouble trying to get licenses straightened out. When I ask, I'm told I have to cook everything in a licensed kitchen and then take it with me.
Well,
How does that work when you want to do boil ups on the beach?
we go through the Department of Health here in Prince Edward Island, and what we have to take is an outside course. Where we give them we run them through the trip that we're doing from start to finish. They came out and they done one inspection with me. The boat was that clean, my fridge in the shop was that clean. They said, you won't see us anymore. This is the cleanest outfit we've seen on Prince Edward Island. So I'm telling you right now, if you think you're going to bluff these guys by not being, and I mean squeaky clean, unbelievable clean under things, because they're going to look. But there are ways of getting around all this, or not getting around it. There are ways of doing this legally. And if you work with them, I wouldn't tell anybody to butt heads with them. Say, okay, that's great. How can you help me to make this work? And there's ways. So we have all the courses in the Department of Health, and our insurance company, they know about everything. So it can work. It's just that you have to find out how to make it work.
I think those are great points, Perry. Because you're absolutely right. It takes a lot of work, and there is a bit of misunderstandings, I think, that happen with, especially around this food. And there's this whole adventure sort of guide side of things that gets overlaid, because there's certain things you can do and you can't do. But Trina, I think the best thing, and I don't know who you've been talking to at the provincial level, but is definitely we could help connect you up. I think to have those kinds of conversations, the boil ups down on the beach and those types of things, like there's different sides and scenarios that you'll hear about this that you just need to be aware of. But there's we've had conversations about this. One of the great things about what's happened across Atlantic Canada with churches and community groups having to have their kitchens certified now is there an opportunity now to partner and to utilize those spaces as federally inspected or provincially inspected kitchens to do your prep and all of those things in those types of kitchens. Anyways, it's just a thought, but really good point. It's one we hear all around Atlantic Canada, is just trying to figure out, how do I do those types of things? And Lori McCarthy's on here. She has all kinds of insights into that. And maybe in her session next week, she might talk a little bit about that as well, if anybody wants to sign up on that side. But any other questions, you guys?
Can I just give a note on partnering, just to follow up what Perry was saying?
Go for it.
So I did the same lots of times. I partnered up with Ocean Quest, and I partnered up with, Mallard Cottage here, and they got a restaurant and an inn where you'd stay at the inn and come out with me, and I mean, it only worked okay for me. Well, and now looking at, because they're really busy and I was already really busy. So for the outside market coming in, it wasn't really beneficial. I was booked up, they were booked up. So it really didn't do much. And it never really helped with outreach in terms of more people knowing about it, because neither one of us were really pushing it because we didn't need to. But now this is a very, like Perry was saying, a very different, we all know it's a very different market. And how are we going to outreach to our locals? So one of the little things we started doing is partnering, but not to sell stuff as such. So for instance, it's only been since COVID that I got on Facebook, actually, because I do a very small volume business. I do tons of private stuff. And so what I'm now finding is that in order to get out to the local market, like Facebook has become a big thing for us. And so it's not only about partnering to sell. So now, for instance, we went to Kitty Vitty Beer and said, look, we're doing these every Wednesday. We post up a cooking video. They're getting anywhere between, 17 and 40 and 50,000 people watching them. If we're cooking all wild game, if you guys want to throw us some beer, we'll like recommend your beer and everything we cook. So this morning we did like rabbit pasties and talked about Kitty Vitty Beer. And so it's less about getting anyone to buy stuff right now. It's about building that local audience. And so, yeah, we're not asking them to buy beer or buy pasties. We're giving it to them. It's like just free content. So I guess I can't emphasize how important it is to throw content out there right now in every place that you can, and partnering up with other places, because then what's going to happen is Kitty Vitty Beer are going to repost our Facebook videos, and Outdoor Pros, which is an outdoor fishing and hunting place here, I'm teaching a curing course coming up, and they have all the curing supplies in there. Now, they're probably going to make $6 on someone going in buying a pack of curing salt. So it's not about that. It's about my reach and their reach coming together. And so we do the same with a local restaurant. It's a charcuterie shop. So I'm teaching a baking course. And so it's more about their Facebook reach and their outreach. And so partnering for outreach right now, I'm finding really valuable in the local market. So that was just, that's my spiel on that.
I think those are all great points. And when we think back to, for those of you who were on last week or heard watched the recording of Alain Bosset, very much what he has done is the same thing. Is how do I get content out in front of my audience? And it isn't like I'm trying to necessarily sell. I mean, he freely admitted that there is some sales, but it's peanuts at the end of the day. What I am doing though is creating those partnerships for people who haven't spent money on marketing campaigns or newspaper ads or radio ads or anything, to actually come in and be part of my content delivery piece. So You know, I think it's brilliant, Lori, what you're talking about and what you're doing. I mean, if I go back to you, Perry, even before this, you were awesome. Like, you know, and it's the same with they asked Lori with this, who owns Cod Sounds, how do you get, you know, yourself on these TV shows? How do you get, you know, Maddie Matheson? How do you get Chef Lynn Crawford? Talk a little bit about, because I find that people have to understand the amount of work that goes into that side of it from you, because it isn't anybody just walking up and saying, "Hey, Perry, we want you to be on this TV show." Talk a little bit about what you had to do for those things.
Well, I'll take the Rick Mercer one just for instance, because that was the biggest and most response we got back from any show that we done. We done about 15 made for TV and internet shows over the years, and we've been in every magazine from Air Canada to right now we're working with National Geographic Canada. So you will be seeing something in the spring coming out about us again. We pursued Rick Mercer. I actually, some nights when I'm drinking a little bit too much wine or whiskey, that I get a little more golly or cocky, and I emailed the Rick Mercer show. I had no idea who I was contacting, perhaps the producer or somebody, and I told them that we have a fabulous product. It would be right up Rick's alley. It's outdoors, it's exciting, it's getting out past the coastline, it's out there. And that's all I put down. And within a month, I got an email back saying, we looked at your website, we checked out YouTube, we want to do the show. Well, this is getting into October. We're getting into cold water. We shut down the end of August. And my first response is, if you can do it, is yes. That's the first thing that'll come into my mouth, whether it's a private charter or anything, yes. And if I can't do it, I'll pull in the partners that can make it happen. So we did do the Rick Mercer show. It was very cold. The water wasn't that cold. The air was colder than anything. But if there's any tips that I can give about doing something like this, that was just a fluke to get them. I must say that. The other ones, a lot of it comes through Tourism PEI or Destination Canada. I'm a signature member with them also. If you do happen to have what I call an influencer aboard the boat, these people like 1 million, 2 million followers on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, or millions, cater to them, treat them like royalty. Because, for instance, I went and got the best chef I knew on PEI at the time, and I told him I wanted the best basket lunch package that he ever made. I don't care what it costs. Well, for me to buy that basket off him was $200. And when we opened that lunch basket down on the island, 8 miles off the coast, Rick Mercer looked me right in the face and he said he was on the road for 20 years or something like that. And that was the best lunch he ever had on the road since he started. Like, the food was just unbelievable, the sandwiches and stuff that he made, and the cheeses and the fruit and everything. So, and we made sure the boat was super clean. We joked with him a lot. Like, I told Rick Mercer that if he caught a clam bigger than my record of 2 pounds, I was going to put his picture on my website and I was going to make him famous someday. Well, that was the biggest laugh in the show. You know, you got to be real with them. You got to have fun with them. And I always go back to this, no matter whenever I do a talk, I tell people what you have to do is, we have 5 senses that everybody knows about. We try to open every sense that the customer has. And then we go into the other senses. And people don't talk about these very much. You can have the sense of humor. Like, you have to keep these people amused. On the boat, I always go with my sense of balance. Like, these people never on a boat before. They're all over the place. And I said, that's another sense that you don't use, and it's your sense of balance. Just a sense of belonging with people, to befriend them and talk about them. Like, I have a story that I blurt out all the time, but every person here on this today, on this Zoom meeting, or everybody has a story, and it's all a pretty exciting story and nice to listen to. You know, there's one that I always get a kick out of, is a sense of direction. When I get people out on the boat and we're out there for 3 hours, I'll say, which way is home? And they just start looking around. They have no idea. They don't know which way north is or east. And so there's all these senses that you can make them aware of, that if they're coming from a city, they never ever thought about. So there's more senses than those 5. Like, I don't know how many senses, there has to be dozens of them, but there's a lot of senses that we try to wake up.
Perry, can you, because you're an incredible storyteller, can
Thank
you share with these folks a little bit about the importance of that story as the core to your experience?
Sure. I thought this was going to come up today, and the reason I have this little prop here, that my grandfather was a fisherman all his life, and my father was a fisherman, and I fished for perhaps about 30 years. My business, Tranquility Cove, got so busy that we had to either sell the business or sell the fishing because I was at a burnt out stage in my life. So we sold we sold the crab first, and then we sold the lobster, and we kept the boat. But I always like to take this here one. And this here was the last knitted head my father knit for me before he died. And I treasure this. And he has his gauge, he has his needle full of twine, and that's the last head that he knit. Nowadays, what we do when we're fishing, we buy it by a big roll, and we take a pair of scissors and we cut it out. People have no idea of the work that they used to go through and the importance of storytelling. I can start telling stories on my boat. I don't like driving my boat. When you're driving the boat, you're getting away from your guests and your visitors. So I have one guy, as soon as we leave the wharf, all he does is drive the boat because I like spending time and telling stories. I can gather those people around me like little chickens, all the way around me at the back of the boat when I start telling them about the island we're going to. How my grandfather lived there as a kid, how my father was born and raised there, how I still went down there until I was the age of 3, just staying at the shanty fishing for 2 or 3 months. How in the wintertime, they would tell stories and mostly ghost stories. They'd scare the crap out of the kids and then send them home after dark telling stories. A one-room schoolhouse. Like there's all these things, all these stories my father and my grandfather told me. I never took much past them, but they're all coming back to me now. And it's a very valuable piece of the experience is storytelling. So we add this in all the time and we keep it going. And even a little thing like going by the lighthouse, now we go in and we tell them the whole story. Cameron Lighthouse, built in 1853. It's an octagon. That's the second generation of lighthouses. The first ones were round. Then the government tried to save money. Then they went to the octagon. Then they tried to save money and they went to the square ones. So there's all these stories that mean something to people that we tell. And like I said, it's a big part of being an experiential provider. Yeah.
You see that as an opportunity with our local market. And I'm going to bring up an example. There was a story I was reading last night, I think it was on CBC. They were talking about people in Southern Ontario and Atlantic Canada who had been tracing their loyalist roots. And they were trying to rediscover the story of their ancestors and, you know, that whole process. I guess my question to you is, given that here in Atlantic Canada, there's a good proportion of us now that live in cities, and, you know, we have sort of this bit of a memory, you know, that our parents or grandparents have told us, but we have this disconnect of, you know, fishing industry, farming industry.
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity to retell those stories to, you know, the Haligonian, the person from Fredericton, the person even from Charlottetown, I guess, to actually help them understand, you know, where they've come from?
Yeah, I can relate to that big time. I had my whole, not all my family, but we had a lot of people out last year. We literally had 30 in the boat. So this was nothing to do with Tranquility. Nobody has to phone Coast Guard here and say Perry was over his numbers. This was me taking my family out on my boat. So we filled the boat up with family and we took them out. Now I deliberately went out to the mouth of the harbor so you could see the island that we're from. And all of these people are descendants of those, my grandfather, my father, and his sister and brother. And I told them the whole story about how he was taken from the western part of the island to live with the Allens because they had no kids. And then after he turned 17, he met a girl in Sturgeon, 4 miles away by water, and brought her to the island, married her, and they lived there. And at the end of it, half of the family had no idea of the history of how that island was such a big part of our story. You can also hit on things that just the tranquility of being out on a boat. One day I was going out on the boat and it was a perfect day, and I tell this story a lot also. But the wind conditions were perfect. There was porpoises breaking alongside of the boat as we're heading out to the island. The sun was coming up in the east and we're going into the sun. And it was just one of those mornings that you felt like everything was perfect. And I just stopped the boat and I shut it off. I went out, the windows were all rolled up on the side of the boat, and I got everybody over to the sunny side of the boat. And I said, come on over here. And they didn't have a clue what was going on. They thought we were broke down or what the heck is going on here? And I got them over and I said, just stand looking at the sun. And I said, shut your eyes and feel that warmth on your face. So they're all there and they're sucking up the sun. And I said, now listen, all you can hear is the seagulls and a little bit of waves lapping on the boat. And I don't know why, but I said, now be thankful. That's all I said. They started bawling and crying. And one guy came up to me, a pastor afterwards, and he said it was the most spiritual experience he ever had, and he was a pastor. Now I held back. I felt like saying, if that was the most spiritual experience you had as a pastor, you better get out of being a pastor. But I didn't say that. But it doesn't take much for people to reconnect with what we just take for granted. It's a big deal for somebody stressed out in the city to have that experience. So it doesn't have to be a big dollar item to make people remember that trip. I had those people back about 6 years after we did that, and that was the first thing they said. Do you remember the day we shut the boat off and the sun was on our face? And so it doesn't have to be a big ticket item in order to make your trip special. Yeah.
Really great point, Perry. Thank you for that. Other questions, folks?
I have a question for Perry. Perry,
Hi, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Great, sir.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing all your stories and information today. We started off with saying we're talking about how we're adjusting, and
Yes.
we're using the term pivot and all that kind of stuff. I bought a house at the beginning of 2020, and we had a 5-year plan with the business and the house. And now that the times have changed, do you have a new 5-year plan, or how are you? I'm finding it hard to be optimistic to plan for a few years ahead.
Yeah.
How are you planning these days? Are you taking it day by day? It's so hard to.
That's a good question. I'm being realistic, Matt, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to go back to work this summer to make a weekly wage.
Okay.
Because I don't think we're going to have anything until the end of August. I'm looking at when the vaccines are all going to be put out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be slow this year to come back, but I'm not kidding you. I'll put my boat on it. They're going, if all this is behind us, they're going to be coming, and it's going to look like a friggin' wave coming. That's how many's going to come. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm still investing. I really do believe, and I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but I think we're going to have to be ready to meet the demand that's going to be coming.
Mm-hmm.
This year, my books is going to be right up. If I break even this year, I'm going to be a happy man, because last year I lost money.
Well, that was it. Our goal last season was to survive, break even, as you said.
Yeah.
And, we're trying to be optimistic and say this season, let's survive and thrive.
Yeah.
So that's it. I think you're right. With the uncertainty of travel and all those things, is to focus on your local market and to really sell your local experience.
That's a question that's asked to me a lot, Matt, as a matter of fact. And what I'd like to see is provincial governments, especially in the tourism department, step up to the plate. And because I'm in the loop and you're in the loop. There's everybody that's at this meeting, they're in the loop because we're very concerned about our business. But there's a lot of people in tourism that are not in the loop, and they really don't have a clue what's going on. They really don't. So I think the Minister of Tourism or the Deputy Minister of Tourism is going to have to get on our local TV channel, CBC Compass or whatever, and they're going to have to come out and say, listen, there's going to be no spring or early summer tourism this year. This is what the facts are. And even if the bubble opens, the bubble does, campgrounds do very well. Golfing does very well. I do nothing. I was down 96% of my business last year. 96%.
Yeah.
And I'm on the board at the airport, and our numbers with the airport are just about the same. We might be out a point. So there are people that are really hurting, and there are people that are doing very well. But no, I think I'm going to be banging nails again this summer. And I'm 63 years old. My shoulders are shot. It's not easy.
No, fair enough.
Yeah, good question though.
Thank you.
You know, one of the things that you talked about the partnership piece, Perry, and you know, one of those things that I've been seeing is this sort of hyper local itinerary development, and actually moving beyond sort of this packaging concept to sort of re-envisioning and putting some thought into what is it that somebody coming to Eastern PEI from Moncton or from Halifax is really going to want to do? What are those things that, you know, are going to really relate to them? Because if you look at a lot of our websites and those things, you know, they're the, here's what you can do for 4 hours in, you know, this side of things. And it's just sort of a check mark of this business, and this business. And the reality is that what we found, people want to be out, and they want to, you know, as you said, Perry, they don't necessarily want to be sitting in a movie theater, you know, shoulder to shoulder. What I've seen with some of these sort of hyper local itineraries is, you know, what are these sort of hidden little gems that we've always talked about in our communities that we can send them out to experience? You know, what's that beach? What's that trail? Without keeping in mind, you know, sometimes we want to keep some of those things for ourselves. And then what's the business opportunity that can be layered over that? And, you know, I've seen it in Ontario's done a really good job, I find, with that hyper local sort of itinerary development. And, you know, and then allowing, and I think this is the key, allowing the visitor or the consumer to sort of pick and choose what it is that they want to buy. So, you know, Matt, if it's your piece that I want to buy, great. If it's Perry's, but we need to make it easy and simple for them. It's, you know, I think that's the hard part, is there's a lot of stress on everyone right now.
Yeah.
You could be an operator, but if you're, you know, if you're a family, you know, and you've had your kids that have either been homeschooled or, you know, there's various ups and downs. Like, you know, even for myself, I think about, I just want somebody to actually make a decision for me and tell me how I can enjoy myself, you know. And you know, I always have this conversation. Lori and I have this conversation because we both have kids. You know, we go to a really bad movie and we drop $120 for, you know, 2 adults and 2 kids. So, you know, I'm not afraid of spending money for good quality experiences. And I think, you know, what you're talking about, Perry, around that developmental piece for the bubbles, I think that's a key idea that we need to sort of grasp at and think about. Just going along and saying that I'm going to do my experience at 10 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday probably isn't going to cut it this season. You got to be flexible. You got to be able to, I think, pay attention to what's happening in these news cycles of people, you know, getting hit over the head constantly with bad news. You know, like all of a sudden, you know, there's a bunch of cases in St. John's, Newfoundland. You know, we were just about to potentially, you know, link back up. And now all of a sudden, you know, where the hell does 11 cases come from? How do they get in there? Halifax is down to, you know, nothing, but, you know, in Northern New Brunswick, there's a pop-up. So, you know, I think there's going to be these, you know, spikes up and down, up and down, up and down for the next year anyways. How do we make sure that that consumer feels safe? And I love what you talked about, Perry. It's like, you know, the safety, the cleanliness, all of these things. That's what I want to hear. I don't want just lip service. I want to know that when I go with Tranquility Cove Adventures, I'm being looked after. My family's going to be safe. All of these things that I don't have to worry about, because, you know, as I said, you know, we've been locked up for a year. If I'm going to give you, you know, $1,200 to take my whole clan, I want to be treated like a king. And I think that's why you're so well recognized for what you do, Perry.
Yesterday we had a couple came here. I do a lot of mentoring, and I'm trying to get the provincial government in to actually starting to pay me to help other people, because I've been doing it for years, and it's rewarding. But I think there's another little aspect of a business here. But yesterday I had 2 people come to my house here. I sat down with them for 2.5 hours. I gave them 2.5 hours of my time, wanting to start a charter boat business down 30 miles down the coast. And at the end of 2.5 hours, I knew that I knew that this was not going to work. I told him, I said, how clean is your boat? I said, in the harbor, I said, you have the cleanest boat in the harbor. No, man, my boat's dirty and the stink in it and all this. Well, I said, you got to clean it up. Well, I'm not much for cleaning. Well, I said, buddy, I said, I hate to break you the news, but I said, it's just not going to fly. I said, when do you want to work? Well, I don't want to give up my summers. Well, everything you're telling me is that you don't want to start a business. So at the end of the 2.5 hours, I just said, I'm sorry. I said, if you guys think about this some more, I said, perhaps we can do some more work on. I was just wasting my time. I can pick these people out. I can go and give a presentation. I do presentations. I supplement my income with talks right from Ontario to Newfoundland, and I'm all over the Maritimes. And I can pick out in a crowd of 30 people who's going to follow this through by the excitement you see in their eyes, by the questions they ask, by, oh God, yeah, I got that and I can do that. And you hear a lot of that, but who follows up with an email to me a day later or 2 days later? So there's only a very small percent of the people that are going to follow through with this stuff, but it's important to recognize them and give them support. So yeah.
Colin has put a couple of links into some stuff that they did around itinerary development in Conception Bay South. Colin, can you talk a little bit more about that and share what you guys did?
Yeah, so once the Northeast Avalon Destination Development Plan came out for the Northeast Avalon, of course, when we looked at the spoke and hub concept, with St. John's being the hub of activity for tourism in the Northeast Avalon, and then all of the communities like Conception Bay South, Mount Pearl, Paradise, all being spokes on this wheel. The goal of the town council out in Conception Bay South was to be that #1 day trip destination from St. John's. So what we did was we embarked on a lot of development sessions with our tourism stakeholders, with a lot of assistance from Destination St. John's. So Chris Shepard, who is now with Legendary Coast, he took Kathy Stacey's position with Legendary Coast of Eastern Newfoundland. Chris was our contact at DSJ. So we did experience development sessions in the winter. And then once we had sort of looked at how folks had developed their experiences and did some adjustments to it, then we pulled in a bunch of stakeholders together and did some workshopping to develop itineraries, trying to leverage what Conception Bay South has that is attractive to travelers and to visitors, and things that can be fit into a fairly small time frame. So we leaned on some of our key assets like the Topsail Beach, which is a former provincial park here in Topsail, that is of high activity, a lot of activity there. We also leaned into our trail system, and we also leaned into some of our operators that have popped up over the last few years, and also some folks like Ocean Quest who've been in Conception Bay South and in operation for quite some time. So when you bring those folks together and they say, okay, these are some items that we can pull together a day trip for folks who are staying in St. John's, or folks who come from out of town and they're in CBS for a sports tournament, or they might be in CBS for work or for business, then they've got the opportunity to go out and do that. So we're trying to provide those items to travelers and to visitors via our economic development department and tourism. Those two items come under our department. So that's what we did. I mean, ultimately it was a process that brought in the DMOs, but also needed stakeholder engagement. So specifically speaking about our itinerary development, we had a virtual session on, I believe it was June 17th. Then we had 4 breakout groups or 5 breakout groups go out and create an itinerary. Those breakout groups met sometime shortly after the first session, and then we all came back on the 24th of June to do another session for people to review what had been pulled together, ask questions, provide some insight, all that kind of items. So we had 4 come out of that. And I think we had another bunch of ideas that the department, myself and Jennifer Lake, our director out in Conception Bay South for Economic Development and Tourism, we were able to work with our comm staff to pull together a bunch of half-day itineraries to make them even shorter for folks who have less time. So it was a full community engagement piece for us. It was a sector development piece for us from an economic development standpoint, but it also tries to put Conception Bay South in this extremely positive light for visitors and travelers.
Colin,
Thanks, guys.
What was the results from all of this?
We're it's kind of hard to judge results based on last year's season. We're currently working with some of our operators to get an idea of what the measurements were. So get some stats back from Ocean Quest, get some stats back from Manuel's River. They had some amazing numbers this year with their trail counters and that kind of thing. So with regards to results, we're still waiting to see what pans out in terms of the numbers and the stats.
And what did you learn as far as how you had to I guess, did you have to rethink or re-envision how you develop those itineraries for that, local market versus, generally what we're building for Ontario, Quebec, Europe?
Yeah, it was an item where we kind of gave it the premise, and Chris Shepard was very, very prescient about putting this in everybody's minds that COVID-19 and a pandemic is going to be a completely different thing. So based on the information that we had after 3 months of living with COVID-19 in our midst, we were able to say, okay, it needs to be socially distanced, it has to be safe, has to meet all the public health guidelines. So that was something that we looked at in terms of understanding that we're going to have a very small bubble in 2020. So let's try and keep things as safe as possible. So there was that learning that went into it big time. The other thing you'll notice about those itineraries is that they're relatively cost effective for the local market. When you're talking about bringing folks out from, Eastern Canada, Ontario, Europe, sort of that high price point traveler. The only thing I think in Conception Bay South that you would kind of put in at that price point is Ocean Quest and Rick Stanley's work out there. So we tried to keep that as cost effective as possible, knowing that staycationing, especially in Newfoundland and Labrador, was going to be something. So when you got people going east to west and west to east, you tried to keep it as affordable as possible.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I can already see another session we should be thinking about around this itinerary development, but the conversations on this thing have been incredible, you guys, and I'm aware of the time here. Perry, some final nuggets you want to share with folks?
The only thing that I can say before we're leaving is don't let this fog that COVID has put over this whole planet, this is going to lift. Honestly, I feel for Matt there when I talk to him and going buying the house and thinking that things were going to be the way they are. It's going to come back. Like Bill Kendrick's a good friend of mine there, and Jackie. These are just locals that I know. We're all hurting. We really are. But it's going to lift, and we're going to bounce back. So just remember that COVID fog's going to lift.